People have asked me how I started sculpting. And the first design I learned to sculpt was a design that I'm going to show you here. And it was showed to me by a little neighborhood boy that was about 6.5 years old, and I was only about 4.5 years old. So it's very simple, and if you follow along, you'll see how simple geometric forms can be combined to create a more complex design. So first of all, what you do is you take your clay, work it into your hand several times until the clay gets softer with the heat from your hands. And then what you do is you form from your ball of clay, you form a rectangle. And you can do that, as you can see I'm doing, by elongating the lump of clay and laying it down and patting it and smoothing it over and trying to keep a nice uniform equal shape, kind of like you're creating a domino chip. And as you do that, you can keep smoothing it out, and to save a little time here, I'll just show you, you keep working it, you can create a little piece like that. And I'm just going to flatten it a little bit more. Now, that was the first shape that I was shown to create this design. Then the next thing I was shown was to take, in the original case, it was a number 2 pencil that was used as a tool to create a depression in the middle of the rectangle, like this, just by kind of pressing down and rolling back and forth and creating a nice little depression in that rectangle. Now, by doing that, of course, you can see that the clay has been displaced on either side. So what you want to do is just take your finger and smooth that clay back into the straight line of the original rectangle that you created to the best of your ability, like that. And you can just use your fingers to smooth it like that. Your fingers and your hands, you'll find, are the best tools that you'll ever have. They do 90% of the work in creating the sculpture that you want. Just smooth that down. So now you can see we still have that basic rectangle shape, okay, but now it has a depression in the towards the middle. Now the next thing we want to do is we want to take the back end of this rectangle. We just want to round over that edge right there, like that. And again, what we want to do is use our fingers to smooth it so that it's a nice rounded edge, like that. And it comes down, and we're going to make a nice edge there. Nice edge on the side here, like that. And on the other side, we want to try to keep it pretty similar, as similar as possible, so that you end up with now a rectangular shape on the front, the way it was when you started, and in the back it's going to have a rounded edge going down. Okay? Now the other thing I want to do is I want to take and I want to round these edges just a little bit, like that. Alright? Just a little, not as much as the back but around these sides just a little bit. I'm going to smooth that out so you have a nice looking surface there. And again, take your finger, just round over that, what we're calling or referring to as the back end of our modified rectangle. And again, you want to smooth those little anomalies out so it looks like a nice, uniform, smooth side. There we go. Keeping the back nicely touched up again. So now we have a rectangle, and maybe some of you are already starting to get the idea of what this is going to be. But at this stage, I want to take you a little further with focusing on the simple geometric forms before we actually disclose what the design is going to be at the end. Okay, so next we want to focus on the front end of our rectangle, and again we're going to round these edges a little more like this. Okay, that side edge there and this side edge here, we're going to kind of pull that extra clay over top like that. There we go. Back and forth, keeping it nice and smooth like that. Keeping the front nice and flat. Unlike the back where we rounded this edge, the front we're going to keep straight at this point. Alright, so there we have now our modified rectangle that has the depression in the center, a little bit shifted towards the back with the much more curved, sloped edge on the back, slightly rounded top parts here, and in the front the same way, slightly rounded, but in the front we have the nice flat surface here. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take a little more clay and we're going to start to roll out little balls like this. And we're going to try to get 5 equal portions. And to speed up time, I've already done it over here, and I'll show you what we want to achieve. And like I kind of started to show, you can achieve those by pinching off the right amount of clay. And this is where you start to develop, your brain actually develops a better eye-hand coordination. The more you work with these geometric forms, the more you work to perfect them, your brain will actually start to develop and change so that you're able to see the little anomalies, the difference in volume that will help you to create better designs and better shapes in the future. So now what we do is we go back to our 5 little spheres and we take them and we flatten them kind of like a pill, and we don't have to be perfectly flat on the edges, but we try to make them very similar and uniform in their shape. Each one we want to flatten like this. We want to try to maintain a nice round edge on that, like that. And again, flatten, round, keep the nice round shape, like that. Number 4, nice flattened and round shape. There we go. And one more, flattened and rounded, like that. Okay. Now that we have those shapes, what we want to do is we want to start placing the little shapes on the side of the rectangle. And just press them on. And I'm sure by now everyone's starting to get the idea of where we're going here and what the design is what we're going to be creating. And there's number 4. And you're probably wondering, well, what's number 5? Well, number 5, of course, in order to have 4 wheels on a little car, you need a spare in the back. And there we have that spare. This is going to be a little sports car, as you can see. Alright, so now that was the first 6 geometric forms that I was shown to create. The larger rectangle with its depression, and then the 5 little spheres flattened, or little balls flattened, to form the wheels. The next thing that was created was, again, taking from your nice original larger piece of clay 2 little balls flattened and creating little seats in the car. There's 1, and here's number 2. And also you could just make 1 seat right across if you want, but sports cars tend to have 2 little seats. So we're going to put 2 little seats, and you just kind of smooth them down into the crevice or the depression there in the rectangle, and those are the seats. And then we need a smaller little ball that we flatten out, and that becomes the steering wheel right there for the driver. Alright, now of course you can't have a car driving without a nice windshield, so we're going to take a little piece of clay, soften it nicely, and then we're going to flatten it like that. You can see we just flatten that little piece of clay out, and we try to turn down the sides here a little bit, so we form a shape kind of like that. And then we're going to put that right on. Need a little less, a little too much there. And what you can see I'm doing when I take a piece off, that's called subtractive. So we're doing what's called additive and subtractive sculpting. And what that means is that if I put on too much clay, I can take it away, and that by subtracting that little portion of clay. If I don't have enough, then I can add it on, and that's called additive. Now the difference between additive and subtractive sculpting is sculpting that you would do in a hard material like marble, where you can only chip away material. Any material you chip away, even if it's an accident, cannot be put back on. So that is completely what we call subtractive sculpting. So now back to putting our little windshield on our car. We put it on like that, and we just kind of work it in there across the front of that part of the rectangle. Kind of looks like a sports car, or almost like a little Jeep. And now we have a little sports car, 4 wheels, extra tire, 2 seats, steering wheel, and the windshield. And now we're going to take 2 other little pieces of clay we break away like this, and we're going to put them in the front to form little lights for the car. Because if you want to drive at night, it helps to have lights on the car to illuminate the road. So there we have it, right there. Now, this is the basic shape, but you can go even further than this. You can take more pieces of little clay and flatten them out as you'd like kind of like I've done here, almost like the windshield. And you can shape them so that they become the fenders over the wheels. That's a little too much, so we're going to make use of our additive subtractive technique, and we are going to form a little fender over the wheel like that. You just bend it over the wheel so it shapes nice, and then you kind of blend it down like that. Tuck it over the top and over the edge a little bit, and now you have a little fender to go over top of your wheel. And you can do that on the back as well. And I'll just do the one side so you can see here on the back. And this is where you begin to do your own creativity with your design, because from here you can do a lot of interesting little details. And there's a little fender on the back, and there's your basic little design of a sports car. And that's what I was shown that started me on the path to sculpting, which has lasted for many, many years. This is the conclusion of our design of the simple car. Next time we're going to do use simple geometric forms to create animals.